You're listening to the Mother to Baby podcast, medications and more during pregnancy and breastfeeding. Ask the experts with your host, genetic counselor and mom of four, Chris Stallman.
This episode contains evidence-based information that's current as of the day recorded and may change as more data becomes available. To get the very latest information about this topic or other topics in pregnancy and breastfeeding, please contact a mother-to-baby specialist at 866-626-6847, by text at 855-999-3525, or through our website at MotherToBaby.org. Welcome to another episode of the Mother to Baby podcast. My name is Chris Stallman, and I'm a genetic counselor, a mom of four, and a teratogen information specialist. So what I do is I talk to people, patients, their family members, healthcare providers about exposures before pregnancy, during pregnancy, while breastfeeding, and in cases of adoption. And an exposure can be anything. So a medication, a chemical that you work with, and believe it or not, things like the sun, sunscreen, and insect bites. And here with us today to talk about some common summer exposure questions are Kirstie Perrotta and Angela Messer. Ladies, welcome back to the show.
Thank you. It's been a while.
Kirstie, can you remind our audience a little bit about your background?
I'm Kirstie Perrotta. I'm a teratogen information specialist with MotherToBaby California. I also serve on our board as the affiliate liaison, and I am a co-chair of the Emerging Issues Task Force. And on a daily basis, you can typically find me on our live chat at mothertobaby.org. I live in San Diego, California with my husband, and I have two little boys.
And Angela, how about you?
Yes, I'm also a teratogen information specialist with MotherToBaby California, also on live chat with Kirstie. Email, you can phone, you can catch us all those ways. And I have been with MotherToBaby since, 2009, so 14 years. And I have a wonderful, almost 5-year-old daughter.
Of course, we love all the guests that we have, but when we have information specialists, we get to talk turkey, trade tips, and
yes.
So I'm going to hit you with the big guns right away. Ready?
We're ready.
Okay, so thinking about summer. For people who are pregnant and breastfeeding, what are some ways that they can protect themselves from insect bites?
Yeah, great question. So in counseling, we always start by mentioning the background risk for birth defects, which is 3 to 5%. And then we're looking to see whether or not an exposure would increase that risk for birth defects or also other pregnancy complications. And with insect repellent, not a lot of them are going to be well studied, but typically we're pretty reassured by the route of exposure. So we know the way the developing baby is exposed to things is through mom's blood. So if you take something by mouth, if you swallow it, that's very likely to get into the blood, cross the placenta, and reach the developing baby. Typically with the topical exposure, though, as long as the skin is relatively healthy, you're only kind of applying it to the exposed areas as needed, we expect that the skin's going to serve as a pretty good barrier, so a significant amount's not really expected to reach the baby, so that does provide some reassurance. And the CDC on their website, they have a great list of, I believe, about 6 insect repellents that are currently recommended by them for pregnancy and breastfeeding. DEET is one of them, and that's one where we actually do have a little data, mostly focusing on use in the 2nd and 3rd trimester, and reassuringly nothing to suggest an increased risk when it's used as directed.
Yeah, that's great. And I was going to just tag on about breastfeeding. So same principle, using as directed, washing hands afterwards, just to make sure there's no direct contact with the breastfed baby, but reassuring overall.
And then, of course, in addition to insect repellent, you can also take other precautions, right? If you're going to be in an area with mosquitoes, you can wear those long sleeves and pants. My favorite recommendation to tell people going on vacation, they don't want to hear it, of course, but that's a great way to protect the skin without needing to treat it. Staying indoors, staying in a hotel or residence that has, windows, screens, as opposed to like an open air type of situation, avoiding standing water, those types of approaches are always a good good idea.
So things like puddles, for
Yes.
example.
Yeah, that was a big thing with Zika, of course, when that was a problem, and still continues to be in certain parts of the world, but definitely, avoiding any standing water.
I never used to think about that because I live in Arizona, right? So very little water in general. No offense, Arizona, but that's just how we are. But then things like pet dishes. I realized that, my dog's water bowl, if it wasn't completely emptied at the end of the day or whatever, that it might be one of those standing water things that I hadn't thought about.
For those bugs that we don't want. Right.
Absolutely. And Angela, what about sun exposure?
Yes, very common question. So very important still to protect yourself from the sun when you're pregnant or breastfeeding, using, sunscreen as directed, still reapplying, also using, big sun hats and protection as much as you can, as you normally do. Sunscreen is still one of the best ways to protect yourself from getting burned, and also, preventing yourself from any kind of sun damage is important regardless. So it's really important to still, use that. And the same principle generally with that, route of exposure, even if you're reapplying. But it's still really extremely important and a good idea to use sunscreen and use it as directed to help protect yourself from sun exposure.
So I need to go get me a big umbrella.
That's right. Umbrella hat, anything to protect yourself. It's still so important when pregnant or breastfeeding. So.
And it's hot out there. I mean, I used to live in San Diego. Now I live in Tucson, where there is pretty much nothing but sun. And it gets pretty hot out there.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Avoiding those peak hours too, middle of the day. Arizona, I'm sure you're well aware, but
we are the peak hours.
That's the time to stay inside, take a nap, rest a little. So if you need to venture outside, early morning, late in the evening. But of course that's when the mosquitoes are out sometimes. So back to the insect repellent,
exactly.
Gotta think about which way to protect yourself.
Exactly. Well, and speaking of that, insect repellent and sunscreen, you want to make sure you put that sunscreen on first, make sure everything's covered, and then you put the insect repellent on afterwards. So that we get some questions about that too, but important to protect yourself from both.
Okay, so one of the common questions that I get is, can I swim in a pool where they've treated the water with chlorine if I'm pregnant or breastfeeding? So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, that's a great question. So we definitely get calls and chats from time to time about chlorine and can I go in the pool? It's a chemical, right? Yeah. So people definitely have questions and concerns about it. But very similar idea to what we were talking about with the bug spray. So typically, even though your whole body is in the pool, the skin's going to serve as a really good barrier. And as long as you're not accidentally swallowing a large amount, always a good idea to rinse off after to kind of get it off your skin. We don't expect that a significant amount would enter into your system. And we've never seen any recommendation to avoid swimming while pregnant. Exactly. It's definitely, a great exercise, very low impact. So no concerns that we're aware of.
Yeah, a great way to cool off in the summer. So
yes. Okay.
And wear that sunscreen.
Angela, you read my mind. Staying cool, extreme heat in pregnancy. Tell us a little bit about that.
So yes, great question about staying out of the sun and keeping cool. So same thing, stay out of the sun as much as possible. If you are outside, do what we talked about. Avoiding those, any kind of heat advisory warnings, definitely adhere to those. Stay hydrated, drink plenty of water. It's already something you'd want to do when you're pregnant or breastfeeding anyway. Yeah. So just keeping, that in mind, but enjoy yourself, but still remember that, we need to take care of those things and maybe be more aware of it than you were before last summer when you weren't pregnant or breastfeeding. So
I think it's so important to give that reminder of, yes, we have things that we want you to do. We certainly have precautions that we take. We would, suggest other folks take, but dang, enjoy your summer, enjoy your time, right. Whatever it is you're doing out there. We just want you to do it in a way that'll hopefully be a little bit better.
Exactly.
So ladies, thank you so much for being on the show. But before you go, what is a final thought you'd like to leave our audience with?
Yeah.
Do you want to go first? Yeah, go for it.
And this right here.
Make it very
This is the beauty of watching folks who work together on a daily basis. They have this shorthand that is amazing. So go ahead.
Yeah, so a final thought I would have is just with summer approaching, a lot of people, of course, are going to be traveling, including out of the country, and Zika is still a possible risk in some of these places. So definitely continuing to take those precautions against mosquito bites. Even here in the U.S., we don't currently have Zika, but there's Lyme disease and West Nile and, dengue in other places. So really important to take precautions anytime there's mosquitoes in the area, wearing the sunscreen like we talked about. So even when you are on vacation, on a baby moon, enjoying yourself, making sure just to take those preventative efforts still is really important.
Absolutely. Yes, Kirstie, great points. And again, contacting MotherToBaby, MotherToBaby.org for any questions anyone has about insect repellents, sunscreen, ways to protect yourself this summer. Definitely give us a call, chat, email, text, and we would be happy to discuss all those exposures with you.
Now that we all know, we can put some faces with the names. Angela, Kirstie, and I occasionally, certainly the two of you, much more than I am on chat. So please, anybody, contact us with any questions that you have about any exposures. And ladies, thank you again so much for being on the show.
So good to be back.
Well, you'll be back again now, so be careful what you wish for.
Yes, definitely. See us again.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
And that's going to do it for this episode of the MotherToBaby podcast. As always, remember to hit that subscribe button. That way you never miss a new episode, and you can go back and listen or re-listen to old episodes as well. If you have an idea for the show, or if you want to be on the show, we want to hear from you. So feel free to email us at contactus@mothertobaby.org. And remember, MotherToBaby is here to answer your questions about exposures before pregnancy, during pregnancy, or while breastfeeding. So feel free to give us a call at 866-626-6847. Text us at 855-999-3525, or visit us on our website, mothertobaby.org. There you can live chat with excellent teratogen information specialists like Angela and Kirstie. You can also find our many information pages, our hundreds of free fact sheets written in English and Spanish. You can find our baby blogs. You can find our podcast episodes and information on our pregnancy studies and how you can get involved. So until next time, remember, MotherToBaby is here for you. Take care.
MotherToBaby is a service of the nonprofit organization of Teratology Information Specialists and supported by the Health Resources and Service Administration of the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. It's made possible through generous donations from listeners like you. To learn more about MotherToBaby, please visit mothertobaby.org.